Hey besties, Monica Ferguson here and welcome to World Domination. This is a safe space for absolute legends who are bold enough and brave enough to go within, to recreate their belief system, to aim high, to chase their wildest dreams and become everything that they are destined to be. This is a space for people who are serious about growth, about healing. We talk about all things mind, body, spirit, and we have the courage to go further than most people even dare to dream. Welcome, let's get into it. Hey, my beautiful friends, Monica Ferguson here, and welcome to this week's episode of World Domination. Now, transparency, if I sound a little bit out of breath, I am. It's not that I'm super excited to talk to you guys, which I am, but I just did several rounds of boxing on my boxing bag at home, and it's taking way too long for me to get my breath back, so let's just keep it real, all right? We're all about that self-love up in here. So, speaking of self-love, you guys, I am so freaking excited to have this conversation, and this is going to be like a tough love, best friend sort of conversation, but it needs to be said, okay, because at the core of everything that you guys bring to me, every single person that I sit with, and let's be real, every experience that I've had of something that I didn't want, at the core of it, it's somewhere, we have all lowered our value, lowered our worth, right? We've settled for less than we wanted, less than we deserve. Why do we do this? And I'm sure so many of us can relate, right? Like, even think about someone you know, like, relationships are a really good example of this. A friend that keeps getting into just trash relationships with people who disrespect them, who do not make them a priority, treat them like an option, treat them like garbage, yet they continue to go back. Why? Why do we allow people to disrespect us? Why do we settle for like horrible health or, self-sabotaging patterns over and over again? Why do we keep doing things even though it hurts us, even though it's getting us something that we don't actually want? Well, fear. So often, right? We have lowered our expectations and our standards, and we've settled for where we are because we are afraid of what will happen if we step into the unknown. And this is why I'm so excited to have this conversation, because you guys, for every single one of us, nothing changes until we decide that we've had enough, right? We've decided, I'm done. I'm done tolerating breadcrumb friends who only call me when they want something, right? Or they disappear for a couple of months and then they come back like nothing's changed and then they bail again without even saying goodbye. We're done. We're done tolerating crappy health where we have no energy. We're done tolerating crappy mental health. We're done tolerating, horrible relationships and barely enough money. We're done tolerating survival mode. We're putting ourselves back on the top shelf where we belong. All right. So isn't it interesting that in every single episode, and we've done like 145 episodes now, very similar themes emerge, right? Fear and self-worth. They are the core drivers of so many of these things. All right. So let's just pick one example to sit with, and we can basically just copy and paste right across to any other area. So I'm going to talk about friendships, right? So if you will, do you have a friend in your life, or maybe a past friend, or some sort of acquaintance who treats you less than you would like? Breadcrumbs you. Maybe it's one of those friends who sort of low-key shades you or insults you a little bit. They're sort of negative. They don't support your dreams. They don't support you. They don't get excited when you win. One of those friends, right? Or they barely show up and they expect you to be there for them, but they're never there for you. Okay, so why would we tolerate this? Well, two things are going on. Either one, we don't actually feel worthy of more. Okay? We don't feel worthy of more. Or two, we're afraid of what's going to happen if we let go of that friend. Because if we let go of that friend, what if there are no other friends? What if we create space in our life and no one comes in to fill it, right? What happens then? And this is where courage is so important. Now, courage, yes, there is a huge amount of faith required. When we are looking to grow and improve our life in any way, it doesn't matter what area of life, we have to learn to be uncomfortable in the uncomfortable, right? To sit in the unknown and have faith that things are going to work out, to know that the universe hates a void, right? So when we create a space in our life, like when we have the courage to decide, you know what, I'm done tolerating crappy friends, I'm going to hold a boundary here, I'm going to pull my energy back from this person and allow this space to be here. Now, the first thing is that the universe wants to fill that void, right? This is how it works. Secondly, you got to remember that there are so many universal laws at play, one being that like attracts like. So while you're holding on to the fear of, oh my God, what if no one else comes in? What's actually happening is that you have raised your frequency, you have raised your standard, which means energetically you are now a match to a higher level of friend. So not only are you not going to have to deal with crappy friend anymore, you're going to actually have a higher level of friend come in. Now, that might be that friend suddenly steps up and becomes a way better friend, or new friends are going to come in. But either way, you win, right? But the key here is that we first must have the courage to choose ourselves, to say, you know what, I'm done tolerating this. I deserve so much better. Okay, so this is the other side to this, all right, that is really, really important. Now, you'll notice that this episode was called, well, I'm playing with the name right now, but it's going to be something about, stop discounting yourself, put yourself back up on the top shelf. And this is the core theme for life, right? We have been raised, especially in New Zealand, in the land of tall poppy, right? Where we're actually encouraged to shrink ourselves, to not think too highly of ourselves. Because guess what? If you actually learn to value yourself and appreciate yourself, there are going to be people that go, who do you think you are? Well, awesome. Imagine if we all just walked around with that sort of confidence, right? And just let the haters, just whatever, self-combust, because that is what they're doing, right? They are more than welcome to sit in their little toxic world where they hate everyone, they hate on everyone else, but that is not the world that we live in. And here's the thing. As we start to really embody our self-worth, as we start to really remember that, hey, the chances of me being here are 1 in 400 trillion. I was created by God. No one else, past, present, or future will ever have my DNA, my fingerprint. I am one of a kind. Why would we walk around feeling unworthy? Right? And this is the question. Why do we do this? Why do we accept this shitty negative narrative of ourselves that we carry around? And here we go down the rabbit hole, right? And you can see how quickly this is what happens with my clients, right? And it's why we can create shifts so quickly, because it might seem like the issue that you have is a money block, but as we go deeper, it's actually some sort of past trauma or some sort of self-worth problem that actually had nothing to do with money. And as we shift the root cause, guess what? The money just naturally fixes itself. So if we look at that question, okay, why do we feel unworthy? Why do we continue to tell ourselves that version? Well, like I said, tall poppy, this is one option. It's familiar, it's comfortable, it's socially acceptable. Okay, there are a lot of people who sit around hating themselves, feeling unworthy. It's very easy if you consume a lot of, mainstream media, you read a lot of magazines, you spend a lot of time online. It's very easy to forget that it's not real. So it'd be very easy to sit in that, right? But for a lot of us, it's because we've never challenged it, right? At some point, we took on a belief of not feeling good enough, not being worthy. For a lot of us, it came from childhood. As I talk about all the time, when it comes to the subconscious mind, our subconscious belief system, our programming, as it were, is formed from 0 to 7. So from 0 to 7, that's when we take on our whole concept of the world, how it works, how we fit into it, how valuable we are. Now, if we had amazing parents who adored us and loved us and chose us and told us how incredible and intelligent and loved we were, then we're actually going to have really good self-worth. And because we had that programming, we then create more experiences like it, okay? So the subconscious mind is designed to seek out more. Like attracts like, right? We're literally attracting, via the law of attraction, thoughts that are like the thoughts we have. And because our subconscious mind makes up 95% of our mind, that is our dominant belief system. So it doesn't matter if we walk around saying, oh no, I am worthy. What the universe hears is what you actually believe, not what you say. So if you actually feel to your core unworthy, not good enough, that is your point of attraction, okay? So you're going to attract friends, partners, money, circumstances, conditions that match your level of self-worth, right? Until you say, screw this, man, I'm done. I want more. And you actually start healing this relationship that you have with yourself. And then we go back to the beginning, right? Where, now I'm starting to feel better. So I've put boundaries up. I've created new standards. I've shifted to a higher level, a higher version of myself. And now I'm attracting at a higher level. This is literally as complicated as it needs to be. Like attracts like, okay? So everything that's showing up in our life has been drawn into us. So this is really useful to understand when we're looking at patterns, okay? And I will put my hand up, besties, and I've shared so much about my own life and journey on this podcast that I learned all this stuff the hard way, man. Like trigger warning around mental health. I almost unalived myself several times. I have been to the darkest parts of yourself where you just loathe yourself, and I felt like the most unworthy, unlovable piece of trash on this planet. And this is why I'm so excited to talk to you guys about this, because honestly, if I can go from that to running a business that I love, that I get to empower people all around the world, and like, you can do it too. I am your sign that this is more than possible, okay? And I'm here to help you. This is literally why we're having this chat, because it is so important that you remember who you are. Because I know that it's so easy to get lost in shitty circumstances and other people's projections and pain, and it's so easy to feel like we don't matter, like we're not worthy, like we're not good enough, like no matter how hard we try, we can never get ahead. It's so easy to feel like our place on this planet doesn't make a difference and no one would care. And I'm telling you that that is wrong. Even if it feels right, I'm not going to invalidate your experience, bestie. I have been there with you so many times, but I'm telling you that this can change and it will change, okay? And that's what we're going to do in this episode, because there's a reason you're listening to this right now. There's no such thing as a coincidence. If you're listening to this right now, it is because you are on this planet with like something in your spirit, on your heart, that will make a difference to this world. Because hello, this whole podcast is called World Domination, right? I speak to leaders. I speak to heart-led leaders who make an impact, because we're all about healing ourselves, developing ourselves, and that then ripples out. Imagine if your children were raised in a family where they didn't have to go and unlearn all this toxic crap that we had to unlearn as adults. Imagine your children being raised, and remember this, 0 to 7, right? From 0 to 7 years old, they were raised in a home where they were told every day how important they are, how loved they are, how intelligent, how much they matter. Imagine what kind of children, what kind of community we would create, what kind of society we would create if the whole next generation was raised like that. We would not have abuse. We would not have addiction problems. We would not have this deep-rooted pain and trauma that so many people are looking to external sources to run from, right? We would literally change the world. I'm not joking. So that's how important this is. That's how important you are. And that is why we must heal. We must do the work. And even if we're only thinking about ourselves, well, I can tell you, the version of me that feels worthy that feels worthy of love, that feels worthy of amazing friends, that feels worthy of money and abundance and joy and fun. It's a lot more fun being me now than it was when all I did was think about how I could unalive myself. And I didn't leave the house and I had no one in my life. Like, that was hell. That was literal hell. And that was a dominant chunk of my life. That was my experience. So even if all we did was think about ourselves right now, that's still okay. Because the version of you that holds that self-worth, that love, that light is going to be a lot happier. And guess what? That's the ripple effect, right? The person that you speak to when you go to get your groceries, you're going to have a better energy. You're going to lift them up. And it ripples out. That's how simple it is, okay? But you were not put here to suffer. You were not put here to struggle. You were not put here to hate yourself and feel like you're not enough, okay? So stop tolerating that crap, all right? We're done. That was the first half of this session, was a little love fest. Now let's get into how do we actually shift this? Because it's time. The only person that can change this is you, right? And I say this with all the love in the world. As someone who had an extremely violent and traumatic upbringing, there was so much love that I had to pour into myself because I didn't get it from the people that were supposed to give it to me. So I didn't start out on neutral ground. I started out way in the negatives. And one of the things that really helped me was understanding the subconscious mind. It honestly changed my life because I internalized so much of what had happened to me that wasn't my fault. I had made it mean that I was unworthy. Right? Like, oh my God, my own parents don't even love me. Or my parents abandoned me. So I'm obviously unlovable. And so because I had that belief, like I say, I then created that experience over and over and over again. So then I had more evidence, right? And so these beliefs just were so ingrained. So guess what? Like, I had these desires to do things. Like I was always really ambitious. I wanted a podcast. I wanted a business. I had all these big ideas. But of course I started them and then all these feelings came up. But I'm unworthy, but I'm not good enough, but I'm unlovable. But who would listen to me? I have nothing to, add value. I have no value to add. Like, who am I to think that I could do this? I'm not special. Even my own family don't want me. These were the sorts of thoughts that I had. And so when I started to understand, though, that my subconscious mind was just doing a really good job at showing me what was going on within myself, that's when I was able to start healing it. And so I started to observe my thoughts and my beliefs and my patterns without judgment. I was more like a detective in my own mind, right? So I was just like, okay, I'm noticing this feeling of unworthiness coming up, or abandonment, or unlovability, or whatever it is. It's like, well, where did this actually come from? And because the subconscious mind is a genius, right? Trust those instincts. When you ask yourself a question, trust the first thing that pops into your head. It's literally your subconscious mind communicating with you. These things are not random. It's very clever, the system that we have. So I'd have a flashback to some certain moment in childhood often where something had happened and I had assigned the meaning that because this happened, it meant that I was unworthy. And as I started to explore, what I revealed to myself was an entirely new perspective. And the adult version of me obviously could see things very differently. So I would go back to these moments in my mind and see it for what it was. See how the adult in charge totally dropped the ball. And it had nothing to do with my value. And so the more times that I did this, the more love I started to create within myself, right? And then I realized, oh my God, I was actually the most amazing, lovable kid. I was always trying my best. I always did my best to help people. I actually deserved so much better than what happened to me. And from that foundation, then I was able to be like, okay, I'm actually worthy now. And of course, just saying that does not make it stick, all right? But because I started to shift my focus to, I've always been worthy. Remember, your mind seeks out more of what you focus on. So my mind started to seek out more evidence of my worth, of my value. So things would happen in my life, and I would see myself, and like the way that I would interact with someone, or the way that I would support someone, or the way that I'd go out of my way to be good to someone. And I would be like, oh my God, I'm so worthy. Like I'm actually such a kind person. And these were the sort of thoughts that started to shift. And of course, because I started to notice these things, the more you notice, right? This is the process, and we cannot bypass the process. Like, if you deeply feel to your core that you do not deserve good things, you are unworthy, you don't matter, there are reasons why you carry these beliefs, okay? And we need to go to the root of it. Because when you rip the root out, all of a sudden it loses its power. And then it becomes a choice, right? But if you're consciously trying to be like, no, I'm worthy, but the dominant part of you feels like, no, you're not going to be able to outthink that or outwork that, right? And because you attract what you dominantly believe, you're going to continue to attract things that you don't want. But at the same time, okay, so that's the subconscious component. Let's flip to what's going on in your life right now. What are the things that you observe happening in your life right now? Now, if we flip to relationships, right? Do you notice in your relationships right now? Are you happy? Do you feel loved and chosen and prioritized and amazing? Are you getting princess treatment? Are you getting loved on in a way that just makes you feel like you're living in a rom-com? Or is it constantly a struggle and you constantly feel like you're getting disrespected and treated like trash? And if so, and I say this with all the love in the world, why are you tolerating that? Because I'm sure you've heard the saying, nothing changes until... Now, how does it go? I just slaughtered that saying. Nothing changes if nothing changes. There you go. Okay, so if you continue to tolerate crap, guess what? You've taught people around you how to treat you. And also you've taught yourself, hey, I don't deserve more than this. But what would happen? And again, we go back to the very first question that I asked at the start of this episode. Like, why are you tolerating that? What would happen if you actually decided, you know what, I'm done. I'm done tolerating crap below par relationships. I'm done tolerating crumbs. I desire more for my life. I was not created and put on this planet to be disrespected by someone that doesn't even have their own shit together. Because let's be real, people that treat other people like that, these are not people that are loving, beautiful, positive people to be around, right? They're usually running from a lot of toxic stuff within themselves and therefore projecting it out. So, are you going to tolerate that for the rest of your life? Are you going to teach your children to tolerate that? Or have you decided that enough's enough? And are you going to find the courage now to trust that life has your back, trust that God has your back, that the universe has your back, that if you create space in your life, if you set a boundary and you walk away from something, that something new is going to come in and fill that space. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about. It doesn't matter if you're so unfulfilled in your job and you're going to take a leap of faith and be like, I'm done. Once you decide that within yourself, things will start to shift. New opportunities will come in. But there's also going to be a period of time that is deeply uncomfortable because you don't know what's going to happen. You can't see it yet, right? And this is where faith is required. Such deep faith and courage. I always talk about courage, and this is why. So much of our journey to improve our lives, to pursue our goals, our dreams, to become the greatest versions of ourselves, so much of it is trusting in the unknown when we don't know how things are going to work out. We know that they will because it's not random what happens to us. When you have clearly decided in your mind, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm going, this is the money, the love, the impact, the happiness, these are the things that I now choose to have, and you focus on that. And you trust that everything that's happening in your life is leading you to that. It must happen. The only reason something doesn't happen is because you quit before it could come in. Because often the process is not what we thought it was going to be, or it gets hard, or it gets scary and uncomfortable, and people go, nah, screw this, I'm running back to comfort. This is the only thing that separates successful people from people who never move from where they are. Our ability to endure the unknown, the uncertainty, right? But this is where we utilize specific tools. Now, if this is you right now, and again, I want to give you guys a practical step to take here, because let's go back to our relationship example. You've decided, I'm done. I'm done being treated like trash. I'm done being treated like an option. And that starts with yourself, by the way. You have to embody that within yourself first. So you start treating yourself with love. You start taking yourself out on little dates, or going to the beach if you love the beach, or, putting on a face mask and watching Netflix. Like, doesn't matter what it is for you. Going for a walk, like, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're actually moving like some positive energy in your own direction, right? It means that when you're upset, you sit with yourself. You validate your own feelings. You nurture yourself. You don't dismiss it and be like, oh, you're just being a drama queen. That is the opposite of love, right? You start treating yourself like your own best friend, because that is who you should be for yourself, okay? So let's say you've done that and you've been like, actually, I realize that I've been carrying a lot of shame and unworthy feelings that weren't even mine. It came from someone else, and I'm done. I choose myself. I choose to love myself. So I've set all these boundaries, and I'm sitting in the unknown, and I'm freaking out. Okay. So I love subconscious tools, right? This is what I'm trained in. This is what I specialize in. Because what we do in that space in between, like I say, is going to determine whether you succeed or whether you go back to who you were. And I'm not in the business of people going back to who they were. I want expansion, right? So I really love hypnosis for this, because when we're working with hypnotherapy, it can be such a beautiful, relaxing experience. So it just feels like meditation. But what it does is it goes in at the subconscious level. Now again, because the subconscious is 95% of our mind and it's calling the shots, when you start putting in new ideas like being worthy, being abundant, being lovable, guess what? You start to take that on as a new belief. And because you attract what you believe dominantly, your life will transform and your mind will start seeking out more. See how this all works? You've decided that you're worthy, and you are listening to a hypnosis every day that makes you feel so confident and worthy and good enough. And then guess what? You start seeing it everywhere. And also, actually, side note, I'm actually recording one right now for my online store around this, around being worthy beyond measure and knowing that you're good enough. So you guys can go and buy this. It'll be in my store by the time this episode comes out. So you can start utilizing that immediately. The other thing that you can do for free is use EFT tapping, which is emotional freedom technique. And I've spoken about this before, but if you type it into YouTube, what you'll find is you can do tapping for anything. Let's say it's tapping for fear, tapping for anxiety, tapping for self-worth. Someone will walk you through a process where you say things out loud and you tap on different meridian points, and the different spots on your face and on your collarbone, on your hands and stuff. And it works similarly to acupuncture, but what it does is you'll feel your whole nervous system will relax. And so this is how we bridge the gap, right? This is how we navigate the discomfort of not knowing what's going to come in, but being able to keep moving forward to what we are so worthy and deserving of, and we get to create whatever we want because that desire is on your heart for a reason, with these practical tools, right, that actually help you achieve that goal. But it starts with a decision, okay? It starts with a decision that you're done discounting yourself. Bestie, you're freaking done. You are so worthy and deserving of more. Stop tolerating crap. Stop allowing it. And it starts with you. Do not tolerate that from yourself anymore, and certainly don't tolerate it from anyone else. And as you shift this, your entire world will change. So I hope you guys have got so much out of this episode. Thank you for being here. I will see you next week. And that is a wrap. Thank you for showing up for yourself, for being here. And please let me know your aha moments. I want to hear all about them. For extra support, make sure you're following me on TikTok and Instagram at the Monica Ferguson. Check out the School of Greatness for self-study courses. And of course, if you want one-on-one mentoring, just DM me and I would love to have a chat with you. Go and slay the day. Thank you for being you. See you soon.